And how long were you in pre-production?
See, we wrote this in April, and we were shooting by late September. So I guess how May, June, July, August, September, 5 months, but at least a month of that was just looking for the location. And then the rest of it was actual pre-production. Hollywood's really risk averse, you know, that's why they keep making prequels, sequels, and things based on books. Like
no giant imaginations.
No, yeah, so most people want to see me say or bring them a sci-fi idea. And I love science fiction, so if I had to get pigeonholed, that's fine. Yeah, but I've co-written a script with my buddy Zeb Wells, who writes for Marvel and directs Robot Chicken, if anybody watches that show. And it's a horror, it's borderline horror comedy, really, and I'm the most excited about that script at this point, so I'm going to probably take that around and see if I can trick anyone into trusting me to do that. And then if no one will, then I'm like, all right, I've got this science fiction thing, let's do that, because that's the... If you have good material, you will find the money to do what you need. But you can have all the money in the world, and if you don't have good material, and we see it all the time in the theater, I mean, I feel like writing is just one giant horrible wrestling match. So
do you still use your cards on the wall and
yeah,
your yarn?
I resisted that for so long out in LA. I was just like, note cards, really? Like, this is the 21st century. We have computers. Like, who the f is a note card? But pardon my language. But yeah, then finally I used note cards to outline a feature 3 or 4 scripts ago, and it was so useful. It just was night and day, just to be able to walk into a room and it's 9 in the morning and you got your coffee and you're, where were we yesterday? And to be able to look at the wall and talk about it, and there's a focus to it and everybody in the room can, I don't know, it just, yeah. I would say more specifically, usually when I'm writing a screenplay, there's a group of films that influence that screenplay. Like, of course I have favorite movies and favorite genres or whatever, but that I'm sure influenced me on some level I don't know about. But like with this one, I remember Time Crimes was an influence, Shallow Grave, Danny Boyle's first movie. Any movie like that, like A Simple Plan, where it's a group of friends find something valuable and then it tears their relationships apart. Any movie like that I used as a paradigm or something to touch on, and I'd have my assistant like break it down on the wall underneath our movie so that we could just see, oh, you know what? Like, if you notice on all of these, there's a really dark moment here-ish. Like, are we kind of lining up with that? And you don't want to follow that all the time, but it's good as a reference, to just have there visually as what other people have done, before you. So I was like, well, I'm gonna write indie scripts until I write a good one, and then I'm gonna go make it, and then hopefully make a name for myself, and then maybe sell scripts later or whatever. Well, we all know the end of this story, but Drew was a PA and then became a writer's PA, and then started showing his spec pilot scripts to like the writer that he worked for or the other writers in the room for the show that he worked for. And pretty soon somebody read it and said, man, you're so good, we're gonna pass this to so-and-so or so-and-so, and ended up on Joss Whedon's desk, and he read it and was like, man, this kid's great. And so we brought him in for an interview, hired him to write on the last season of Buffy, and then whatever. Then he wrote on Angel, became an executive producer on Alias, an executive producer on Lost, wrote J.J. Abrams' Cloverfield, and then whatever, it just goes on. I think he just wrote Steven Spielberg's Robopocalypse, so he's doing fine. But no, that's another way, I guess, is to try to I have a lot of friends who are going that route of becoming a writer's assistant or just trying to get connected to writers' groups in LA with the hopes that someone who is employed writing for TV or movies will read their stuff and like it and sort of say, hey, you know what, you could show that to my agent, or you show that to my boss, or you show it to this showrunner or whatever. So that's another way to go. But again, I don't think I have a great answer personally because I haven't actually succeeded in the way that you're asking about. Right, well, it's a great time. For some reason, all the producers and studios that I talk to they feel as though sci-fi is like a cool thing to be into right now, and that may pass, but for the moment, it's a great thing to be pitching people. Two, I guess the obvious, to try to find some way to do something that hasn't been done before. I mean, this, technically, we thought we were so original in writing this machine that takes pictures of the future, but then halfway through pre-production, we even have it in the special features. You'll see me the day that I found out that there's a Twilight Zone episode that has a camera that sees the future, and I'm, sheet white, like, oh God, are we screwed? Do we have to do this, whatever. And then there was a Goosebumps episode, and I guess there was some French novel from the 30s. Anyway, you start to learn very quickly that you're not actually very original at all. Hey, buddy. But still, this idea was novel enough to where it's kind of time travel, but it's, you know, there's so many indie time travel movies get made now that this sort of stood out as like, oh, a lot of people hadn't heard of this thing. So obviously, if you can think of something that hasn't been done a zillion billion times, that's, you know, better. But other than that, I don't know. You know, it's all, I don't think there's any rules. We purposefully tried to make this one so that on second viewing at least, it would all make sense. Whereas, you know, movies like Primer, arguably, you could watch it a million times and never really know for sure what the hell just happened. And I love Primer, but we consciously tried not to do that. We wanted it to be explainable if you know, if you drew it out. So.